June, Prime Minister Theresa May and opposition Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn will face questions from audience members about the issues that matter to the British public. Join us for Question Time Leaders Special on BBC World News.
Catch up with all the latest sports news and results from around the globe, now on BBC World News in Sport Today.
Hello there, I'm John Watson. Welcome along to Sport Today, live from the BBC Sports Centre. Plenty to bring you on the programme. Here's what's coming your way. Conte or Wenger, who will come out on top as Chelsea and Arsenal contest Saturday's FA Cup final? From big matches to big races, Fernando Alonso swaps F1 for today's Indy 500. And back on court, but can Andre Agassi help Novak Djokovic recapture the form that took him to world #1? Yes, it's the English FA Cup final at Wembley Stadium in London on Saturday. Chelsea and Arsenal facing each other following contrasting seasons, it's fair to say, for both. Chelsea, the English Premier champions, are going for the double in what is Antonio Conte's first season in charge. It would be a 5th FA Cup trophy in 10 years for them. Both these sides having enjoyed great success in this competition recently. What a season it's been for Eden Hazard. For Arsenal, though, it could be their 3rd cup in 4 years, but finishing outside the top 4 in the league for the first time in 20 years has brought Arsene Wenger's future into sharp focus. A win later would alleviate some of that. He's no stranger to lifting the FA Cup, as you can see. This could be his 7th success in the tournament, which would make him the most successful manager in FA Cup history.
I don't care about me, I care about us winning the game on Saturday, and when you go in a game you can accept that in a cup final you can accept the challenge, you just want to win it, and the last worry I have is my person in a game like that.
We have to forget for this moment that we won the league, and to be concentrated on this target, because don't forget it's a fantastic target, and we don't know if in the future we will have another possibility to win this trophy.
Well, it's not the only domestic cup final taking place today. Plenty across Europe to tell you about. Luis Enrique will take charge of Barcelona for the last time when they play Alaves in the final of the Copa del Rey. His side pipped to the Spanish league title by Real Madrid, but it still provides him with a chance to end his reign with some silverware by winning the King's Cup. And they've been boosted by news that Gerard Piqué, Javier Mascherano and Alex Vidal are all available for selection. So, as he bids farewell after his 3-year spell, could he see himself returning to the club one day?
Well, maybe I'll show up in July. I'm sure a few people will have a heart attack. I've learned to never say never. This is my home. This is the club which has trusted me the most, both as player and coach. Why would I say I would never coach Barca again? I'm young, likeable, pleasant. I have it all. So why not?
Well, Barcelona there are going for a record-equaling 29th Cup triumph. Spare a thought for Borussia Dortmund, who play Eintracht Frankfurt in the German Cup final today. Despite starting as favourites, they've lost their last 3 Cup final appearances. But having finished 3rd in the league to guarantee Champions League football next season, this offers them a chance to finish with some silverware, with speculation that manager Thomas Tuchel and striker Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang could leave the club after the match. Now, it's not going to be an easy or happy return to Formula One for Jenson Button at this weekend's Monaco Grand Prix. The Briton is standing in for Fernando Alonso at McLaren after the Spaniard opted to race at the Indy 500. Button will start from last place after he was given a 15th-place grid penalty for changing an engine. Sebastian Vettel came out on top in final practice, 0.3 of a second faster than his Ferrari teammate Kimi Raikkonen. Lewis Hamilton could only manage 5th. Well, what a weekend of motorsport it is ahead of us. We can talk a little bit about the Monaco Grand Prix now, as we've been doing. It's staged on Sunday, famous, of course, for its picturesque street circuit. And while Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel are battling it out at the top of this year's Drivers' Championship in Formula One, just what is it like to win such a famous Grand Prix? Well, it's where South Africa's Jody Scheckter Won in the year that he clinched the world title. That was back in 1979. Nearly 4 decades later, he's still the last African to compete in Formula One. And Piers Edwards has been along to meet him.
Now, only once in the long history of Formula One has there ever been an African world champion, and he is standing next to me, Jody Scheckter, born in South Africa, who was the world champion in 1979. He's now based in the United Kingdom, and we're at his farm, and behind these doors, the cars that reveal the secrets and a great deal about Jody's career. So, after you, if we can.
Sure.
So what have we got?
So it all started there in England. I won a Driver to Europe award and bought this car second-hand. Didn't have any tools, didn't have anything. Delivered it to Brands Hatch, borrowed some spanners, and there was a Formula One race at the time, and I think I was second row of the grid, spun, went through the field and came second, which was a great start because, you know, the Formula One teams were there.
Scheckter's home in England is a monument to his career in motor racing. He's the proud owner of many of the cars he drove, but pride of place goes, of course, to the Ferrari in which he won the world title. This is the World Championship winning car?
This is a World Championship car, absolutely, yeah. And it finished every race. We had Michelin tyres, which were the first radials in Formula One. The most success I had was coming out alive, because 1 to 2 drivers were killed every year.
Scheckter's last Formula One race was back in 1980, and no African has ever competed in a Grand Prix since. So why does he think that is?
South Africa has got a very broad history of motor racing. So there's no reason why there shouldn't be people coming out of there. I think it's just difficult because you need money to come in and race, and it's very expensive.
Decades since the last African to compete in Formula One, you have to go back to 1993 for the last time the continent hosted a race, when the likes of Ayrton Senna and Michael Schumacher graced the Kyalami track, which is just north of Johannesburg. Should Formula One return to South Africa, will that be the inspiration needed to produce the next African driver? And who knows, perhaps someone who can follow in Scheckter's footsteps by becoming world champion one day. Piers Edwards, BBC News.
Well, the Indianapolis 500 is also one of motorsport's most prestigious races. It takes place this weekend with Fernando Alonso looking to become only the second man in history to have won a Formula One world title and also win the race. He'll start the 500-mile, 200-lap endurance race from 5th on the grid. So how much excitement is there ahead of his participation? Well, I asked American sports business expert Rick Horrow just that.
I'm here in Indianapolis today, and the economic impact all told this weekend and last week, nearly $500 million. So the Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development types are really excited. By the way, in 1911, when this race started, the entire population of Indianapolis was 200,000. Now they packed that plus 70,000 more in the racetrack itself. So the race itself is important. Alonso, a critical component from an international perspective. I will say that Americans tend to focus on the domestic entries. But the point is the Indy 500 in America is iconic, and it's also used to promote other sporting events and other economic events that are really good for the region.
Well, I guess that makes sense with a lot of attention and a lot of focus on the big race. What are the expectations and what are people predicting that Fernando Alonso will manage to achieve during the race?
Well, you know, it's hard to know because this is a different track, obviously, but a different set of competitors. And it's equivalent to the excitement of somebody joining NASCAR for the first time who's had successes in other forms of racing. You're not sure. He's an international competitor. He races at levels some would say higher. Nobody wants to get into that debate. But my prediction is he'll run very well and he'll finish strong. How's that for a non-answer? You like that? Run very well.
Sitting on the fence a little there, Rick. I was expecting you to tell us that you were thinking he was going to win it or at least finish on the podium.
He'll either win it or finish on the podium or have a good race, and a good time will be had by all.
Absolutely, absolutely. And are you going to be there?
Oh, yeah. No, I'm here all weekend. This is a bucket list item for me, and it's kind of hard because I know we have a lot to cover on a regular basis. But, you know, the Stanley Cup finals open in Pittsburgh on Monday night. That's another issue. But that's only a 5-hour drive from Indianapolis, especially if you're speeding in one of those cars. So there are a lot of things that are happening in the Midwestern part of the United States over the next 3 or 4 days.
sports analyst Rick Horrow giving us his take on the Indy 500 to come this weekend. Novak Djokovic has called his new coach, Andre Agassi, a perfect fit as the pair linked up ahead of the French Open. The 8-time Grand Slam champion is now working with the former world #1. He's tempted him back out onto the road to work as his new head coach after Djokovic split from his long-term coaching team last month. For the moment, it's just a trial between the pair, but Djokovic, who won the French Open last year before suffering that 11-month dip in form, has showed signs of improvement as his run to the final at the Italian Open demonstrated.
Right now, I feel much better on the court. I've played a great week in Rome. I was, talking with Andre for a couple of weeks during Madrid and Rome on the phone, kind of preparing for the matches, analyzing matches, and that allowed both of us to get to know each other and to kind of, for him especially, to get closer to my thinking and my mindset about tennis, about life in general and so forth. And I was very glad that he accepted to come in person in Paris and spend some time. Yesterday was obviously the first day, and we had 2 practice sessions, and then we had a very, very long conversations in the evening. And even though it was the first day, it felt like we know each other for a very long time.
New Zealand's Danny Lee and Kevin Kisner are in a 4-way tie for the lead at the halfway stage of the PGA Tour's Colonial in Texas. He fired a 6-under-64. American Kisner shot his second straight 67. That moves him into a tie with Webb Simpson and Scott Piercy for a 1-shot lead at 6 under. There's no time to relax, though. A strong field that includes several major winners aren't far behind. Sergio Garcia, one of those. Here he is. And Jordan Spieth also in contention heading into the weekend. Elsewhere, South Korean rookie Park Seung-hyun fired a 7-under-65 on Friday to take a 2-stroke lead at the halfway stage of the LPGA Volvic Championship in Michigan, making 6 of her 8 birdies on the back 9 on the way to a 12-under par total to lead by 2 shots over Australian Minjee Lee and Norway's Suzanne Pettersen. Still plenty of golf to come, though, in both of those events. That for now, then, brings you right up to date on this edition of Sport Today from myself, John Watson, and the Sport Today team. Thanks for your company. We'll see you back here soon. Goodbye.
Who will be your BBC Women's Footballer of the Year 2017? The fans have chosen. The votes have been counted. Will it be Germany's Melanie Behringer, Norway's Ada Hegerberg, Sweden's Hedvig Lindahl, Brazil's Marta, or Canada's Christine Sinclair? Find out when Sport Today reveals who fans across the globe have voted BBC Women's Footballer of the Year 2017.
Hello, in Europe's weather, lots of people have been talking about the heat, and there's a bit more of that to